Circus Baby's Diner is a Five Nights at Freddy's fan game that takes the characters from sister location and throws them back into the iconic 2014 era gameplay loop. You know, with your 2 doors, camera monitor, and an ever-draining power system. This game seems to take place in the unseen but hinted at Circus Baby's Pizza World that was closed due to gas leaks. And although it's not canon, this game kind of patches up some holes in the lore quite well. Also, there are 2 baby animatronics. Twins, if you will, but we will get into that later. First releasing in 2020, this game was played by all the greats. Your Dorkos, your Fusion Z gamers, and so on. I, however, had never heard of this game before, but I wanted to try it out, it looked pretty cool. The game starts out giving you a choice between 3 difficulty levels: normal, hard, and hardcore. I went with the normal difficulty because I didn't want to do hard, because hard mode enables a heart system where it's a 3 strikes and you're out sort of thing, and hardcore is just permadeath, and I'm not doing permadeath. Once you chicken out and choose the normal difficulty, the game prompts you to fill out an application, asking for your name as well as some optional information. After much deliberation and okay, I was stuck on the screen for like 5 minutes trying to come up with a funny answer. Even though, as far as I'm aware, the information you put in here is never referenced in the game. But regardless, I went with a mature and dignified name. Starting night 1, rather than a phone call, you are met with a message from the AVOS, or AVOS, which stands for Automated Voiceover System. Okay, the first night is super short. It's dedicated to simply allowing you to get a good grasp on the controls and the cameras without any real threats present. Kinda like the first night in FNAF 3, actually, but less boring, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. AVOS states that at the end of each shift, you are to fill out a questionnaire for each animatronic present in the AVOS terminal, detailing any and all events that transpired that night, such as whether or not a character attempted to move, spoke, or try to gain access to your office. And according to AVOS, failure to accurately answer these questions will result in consequences. And this might sound stupid, but something about this was really off-putting. More specifically, the AVOS checklist portion, where it asks some pretty boilerplate questions about whether or not the guide was accurate or helpful, but then at the bottom, it asks if AVOS moved. I don't know, something about it just feels off. It's cool, and it's super eerie, but it just creates more questions. What is AVOS? It has to be a physical animatronic if it can move around, but hey, lore. Night 2 is where the fun really begins. AVOS instructs the player on how to operate the doors, explaining that they're magnetically sealed and that we should use them sparingly. Okay, I know it's like the age-old question in the FNAF community, but why does it cost more power to keep the door shut rather than keeping it open?
Oh, probably because you would have no gameplay loop and thus no game.
I don't care! Upon realizing that your life is now in the hands of some magnets being powered by a very limited power source, AVOS then decides to mention the fact that there is a maintenance vent on the roof directly above you. Now, after hearing that horrifying information, AVOS states that they will go on standby and just fuck off for the remainder of the night. Right out of the gate comes Funtime Freddy. He is the only character active on night 1. Or, I mean night 2. He will wander throughout the diner and will appear on camera 6 when he's 1 move away from being at your door. And for some reason, Freddy and Bonbon just don't have eyeballs in this one shot. Like, it doesn't even seem like it's the normal blacked out pin eyes we're used to, they're just missing their eyeballs. And another cool part about this game, in my opinion, is that it's pretty good at showing off just how tall these characters are. If you know anything about FNAF, you will know that these guys are actually quite large. I mean, Circus Baby is 7'2", 2.19 meters, and weighs 292 kilograms, 585 pounds. Anyways, Freddy will show up at your right door, and all you have to do to counter him is to close it on his face. And that's it. Freddy shows up a few more times and then the night ends. I will say, kinda sad they didn't do anything with Bonbon, but hey, super cool nonetheless. Night 3 is where just things start going to shit. But first, I should probably talk about how the power works, as it's slightly different to what you're probably used to. The power is labeled as generator efficiency, and it will tick down fairly fast. If it reaches 0, then you're dead. However, you have 12 gallons, or gallbladder, but I'm gonna assume it means gallon, of fuel to refill the generator with whenever you please. But considering how fast the generator efficiency goes down, it's basically the same as the music box in FNAF 2, since that basically whenever you have a moment, you need to be refilling it. And the percentage goes down passively, meaning that even when you're off the cameras and seemingly not using any power, it'll still consume power. Anyways, as I was saying, Night 3 is just a big step up from before, and I feel like this jump in difficulty is due to there being no real Night 1, so it feels like Night 2 was kind of just skipped in the traditional difficulty scaling sense. This night throws Ballora, Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, and Circus Baby at you all at once. You heard me, it went from only Funtime Freddy to basically the entire roster in one night. This took some adjusting. Starting with Funtime Foxy. He He will slowly emerge from his curtains throughout the night, and once he's out, he will bolt for the left door, much like his FNAF 1 counterpart. Watching him through the cameras will slow his advance, however, it will not stop him completely. Once he leaves the cove, you can hear a faint running noise, but that's about it in terms of sound cues. I can't count how many times I got distracted by other things and forgot to watch him. And by the time I realized he's on his way, I am dead. Funtime Foxy is frustrating to deal with, but honestly, it's a fair and simple mechanic. You just need to learn to prioritize him. Doing so, however, is made 10 times more difficult by our next special guest, Ballora. I do not like Ballora. Not as a character, don't get me wrong, she's awesome. But in this game, holy shit, I can't count the amount of times I played the scooping cutscene from Sister Location over in my head while trying to beat this game. It provided little comfort in these trying times, but hey, I take what I can get. Ballora will show up at your left door. No, sorry, right door. No, sorry, actually, she shows up in the vents. I'm kidding, she shows up in all of them. Ballora is the single biggest pain in the ass I have ever come across. On paper, her mechanics are fairly sound. If you see her at either one of the doors, shut them. And when she appears in the vent, hold it closed until she leaves. Okay, I will say, none of the problems I encountered were when she was at the doors, but the vent was so buggy. Ballora plays a sound cue when she enters the vent and another one when she's ready to attack. I think. The main problem is when I would check the vent and it would be empty, then the moment I turn my back, I die straight away. And before you ask, no, she wasn't at the doors. Ballora has 3 unique jump scares, and which one you get depends on her location. And this one was the vent jump scare, but we move on. I say move on, but I will probably have more to say on her later. Next up is Circus Baby, and honestly, I'm kind of underwhelmed with her mechanics. She's just a Funtime Freddy clone who shows up at the left door rather than the right. I feel as though for someone who's the face of this game, her mechanics should probably be a bit more than just show up at door, close door, and win. It's Circus Baby's Pizza World, not Ballora's vent bullshit. Anyways, despite all of my bitching, I beat Night 3 first try, and I was feeling pretty confident in the game itself. And can I just say, real quick, this game looks and feels incredible. The model and animations look really good as well. Okay, just to give you an idea of what comes next, to beat the first 3 nights, so far it had taken me around 20 minutes. And the total length of my recording is 3 hours, so you can imagine that my previous easygoing mindset dies here. Night 4, where dreams go to die, where Ballora starts to show her true colors, and I get humbled really quick. The start of Night phone call isn't Avos this time, it's another employee at Circus Baby's Pizza World, stating that Avos isn't functioning, which is all fine and dandy. However, 30 seconds in and everyone is off the show stage. My first and second death were both to Funtime Foxy, mostly due to the fact that after Night 3, I thought I kind of had a grasp on how fast he left the stage, and I got kind of cocky because on Night 4, it was cranked way up and he came out much faster than I was anticipating. My third death was to Ballora, and it's the one I was talking about earlier, where I had both doors shut, an empty vent, and seconds later, a Ballora in my face. Still not quite sure how this happened, but moving on. I died another 2 times to Ballora before finally beating Night 4. And I know I was all doom and gloom earlier about Night 4, but this is where the real bullshit starts. As you can imagine, in terms of normal FNAF difficulty scaling, Night 5 is usually the hardest, as most Night 6s have a special mechanic of sorts. And this game was no exception. The night starts with the employee from before calling to talk about the future of the location. He says that this will be the last night with all of the animatronics in the building, as some of the Afton employees are coming to pick up Ballora, Foxy and Freddy, and Circus Baby. However, he's talking about one of the Circus Babies and leaving the other one. I think it's the one that we see in Sister Location, the one that's in Cam 5, because, yeah. There's some pretty neat lore with the fact that the Circus Baby that's active throughout this game is the one that clearly turns into Scrap Baby later down the line, with the employee stating that there's no current plans to relocate the active Circus Baby, meaning that it probably would have been stored in that facility, but it's FNAF, so there was a gas leak and a fire, which explains Scrap Baby's rundown look in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. I know it's not canon or whatever, but I think it's cool seeing other people's interpretations of the events between games and stuff. Also, fun little Easter egg, I saw Scrap Baby appear a couple of times at the doors throughout my playthrough for like half a second, so that's neat. There are also some cool minigames hidden throughout this game that I'll talk about later that explain some of these events a little better. Anyways, back to Night 5. Ironically, the phone dude says that this will be a low-risk shift. Boy, was he wrong. My first death was something that just kept happening over and over and over again. I felt like I was in a loop. I checked the vent. It's empty. Then seconds later, I die to Ballora from the vent. Ballora was genuinely starting to get on my nerves because at At times, she would show up at the door and give you 1 second to react before killing you, which is a bit of a problem if you're on the cameras. Since this game isn't like normal FNAF where to pull up the cameras you have to just flick your mouse down, in this game you have to click a little button on the bottom of the screen to toggle the monitor and the same to look up at the vent, which adds some delay in reaction time. Luckily, to compensate for this, the characters at the doors are fairly forgiving for how long they'll stand there before attacking, all except for Ballora. After dying for the 3rd time, I decided to go have some lunch and come back with a fresh set of eyes. Too bad it didn't help at all. I found the best strategy was to look directly straight ahead, perfectly in the middle, as you could catch a glimpse of any characters that would appear at the doors without needing to move around so much. This means a lot more of my attention could be focused on keeping Foxy at bay and winding the generator, since at this point it was depleting super fast. There were a few times this strategy backfired on me. If I was even a slight bit too far to the left or right, it would all come crumbling down, because I'd end up missing someone who was right at the door and I just didn't see them. Okay, so on this attempt it was 5:30. This was the furthest I've gotten so far. I was so close. You could see by how I was playing that I'd become extremely paranoid about Ballora, as I was literally triple checking the vents and they were empty. And then she gets me anyways! And then the next death, I checked the vents, it was empty, and then not even a full second later, she gets me again. This goes beyond Ballora being fast, she is just broken. I decided that the only way I was going to stand a chance at beating this night was if I let Funtime Foxy do as he pleases and try to prioritize Ballora. And while it took some adjusting, eventually I was able to beat Night 5 after about an hour of trying to figure out Ballora. And okay, I'll come clean here, it was just luck. In the winning attempt, Ballora only showed up in the vent 1 time. That is the only reason I was able to win. She showed mercy on me, and for that, I thank her, I guess? Now, before we move on to Night 6, I want to give attention to the extras menu. More specifically, the secret minigame that's hidden within it. Underneath the exit button is a tiny little Spring Bonnie sprite that appears when you hover over it. When you click on him, it starts a minigame kind of like the ones from FNAF 2 or 3, where you play as Spring Bonnie and are instructed to collect scrap. Wandering around the diner, you will find one of the withered animatronics. You pick them up and put them in your pocket somehow, and take them over to this furnace thing to recycle them. You know, even though he's a serial killer, I'm glad the art of recycling and caring for the environment isn't lost on William. Once you put the animatronic on the conveyor belt, they get melted down into some wingding shit, which I'm just gonna assume is Remnant. And then we gotta go put the Remnant into Baby. This seems to be the baby that turns into Scrap Baby later on, so that's cool. Okay, moving on to Night 6. Fuck me. Like I said before, most FNAF fan games have a special sort of gimmick on Night 6, and this game is no exception. All of the animatronics are gone, and instead you get to face off against Ennard, aka Avos. Yep, Avos is Ennard, so that's cool. Avos takes the role of every character thus far except for Foxy. They will show up at the left and right doors as well as the vent in the ceiling. You have to sit and listen for which side Avos is approaching from before they reach the door. Once they do, you have a very limited time frame to shut the door, so it's important that you know which side they're coming from before they get there. Also, side note, holy shit dog, look at how tall this guy is. They are a giant. This night took a while, but honestly, once you get the hang of it, it's pretty simple. Night ends, and of course, because it's a Five Nights at Freddy's game, the place burns down. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Overall, I'd say this game is very solid. Even with all of Ballora's bullshit, it's got a lot of polish to it, and I had a lot of fun playing. But thank you so much for watching. If you have any fan game suggestions you want me to play, then leave them in the comments below. Anyways, thank you, and have a wonderful day.